So this is Danny Flexon here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by a highly esteemed trainer, Joe Gallagher. Joe, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, Danny. Thank you.
Good, good. We're here to do the breakdown of the big fight this weekend, Canelo against Caleb Plant, for all the major titles at 168 pounds. And I guess the best place to start, as someone who's been in the opposite corner to Canelo, is when you got in there, or when Callum, in that case, got in there with him, did Canelo do anything that you hadn't seen before or that impressed you more up close than when you'd watched him on TV or ringside?
I think it was more so the case when Liam Smith fought him. Obviously, Liam gave him a good fight for, I think it was 8-9 rounds. And we had good success in that fight and good moments. So when we went into the fight with Callum Smith, we were aware of the size of Canelo, the way his movements, everything else. I think the trouble with Callum Smith and the Canelo fight at the time, Callum had only had the 4 weeks notice and we're in lockdown and it was hard to get sparring. But we negated a lot of Canelo's good stuff, the way Canelo moves, the position in the ring, when he decides to throw his shots, when he feints. And we did that. What we didn't do early on, which I wanted Callum to do a little bit, was engage early. When you see the fights with Triple G, he comes out, he engages, and he comes to Triple G and has a bit of a firefight with him. Canelo doesn't throw that many punches per round. If you look back and watch, they're very well placed, well executed and well timed. But I feel if, like in the Triple G fights, if you set a tempo and try and make Canelo go with that tempo, at some points he does back off and go for a walk, go for a breather, has a round off, and always tries and finishes the championship round strong, 11 and 12. So there wasn't nothing different that I hadn't seen before from Canelo. No, there was nothing different before. We negated a lot of his good stuff that he didn't get his best shots off that he usually would do. He did get some shots off, but didn't get his best shots off. And I do feel, I know we lost these in the short space of time that we had. We negated a lot of good work of Canelo's that he likes to do.
How significant do you feel Callum's size was in the fight? Because Caleb Plant's obviously taller, rangier than Canelo as well, different skill set, of course. But how significant do you think the size advantages were?
I think there would have been, to his advantage, better if we would have let the shots go early, and with that. But what Callum didn't have going into that through lack of sparring was timing. He didn't have no timing. So if you remember watching the fights early on, Canelo would come in and he'd just put his head in, pull it out, and Callum was throwing shots and they were missing left hooks, missing right hands. So when Canelo makes you do that, you feel uncomfortable to throw them shots then, for the fear of being left vulnerable for the counter, which Canelo was very good at.
Interesting. If you were in the Caleb Plant team or in his corner, what would you be advising him to do to give him his best possible chance in the fight?
Well, obviously, movement, as you see with the Billy Joe fight, movement with Canelo, but it's at that point of where you're going to engage. It's on the way in, Canelo's very good, and it's also on the way out. He catches people. He moves ground very quickly. You feel you're out of reach, but before you know it, he's in with a big left hook or a right hand. You see him with Kovalev, and obviously you see him with Billy Joe and Callum Smith. For Caleb Plant, movement, as you've seen with Mayweather, movement. The jab's very important. He's got to get the jab off. I wouldn't say he's got to try and win the battle of the jabs, but the jab's very key. Be busy when he comes in, come in the front door, go out the side door, keep Canelo turning. Canelo will come with his big shots. Make sure you're moving away so that he can't get them off. And I was saying it to the lads in the gym. We've been having a debate this week. And obviously we've got huge Canelo fans in the gymnasium. Yeah. And I said, listen, you've got to remember, Canelo's not the home fighter in this fight. Caleb Plant is. It isn't Canelo Promotions, it's Al Heyman Promotions. And I said, Caleb Plant, if he can stay on his feet for the 12 rounds and make rounds close and win some rounds, don't be surprised of a split decision somewhere that'll upset a lot of people. There is that. Also on the same content, no one expected Sugar Ray Leonard to stand up for Marvin Hagler for 12 rounds, but he did do, if you understand, that quick-handedness, Caleb Plant, if Canelo comes in, Caleb Plant throws quick hands, quick punches, claims him or gets out. He's just got to be careful in the engaging part. When you watch Caleb Plant fight and engage, he leaves himself open. And like I said today in the gymnasium, when Caleb Plant hits you, he's a sharp hitter and you get his respect. But when Canelo hits you, you think, fucking hell, he hits. Do you understand? Do you understand? There's a difference in hit and being hit when Canelo hits. So if Caleb Plant can not get hit as often or in damage limitations of them engagements when he's in and out, he has a good chance by getting that jab going and getting them feet going and throwing shots. We all assume sooner or later Canelo thing, but Canelo comes for the big push, and if he might start fast to get the 8-round, 9 knockout that he's predicting, or he might let Plant move around. It's when Canelo comes what Plant does. Does he step back? Does he make Canelo fall short? Does he get Canelo even more frustrated? Then he's walking onto shots and Plant's winning rounds a little bit easier because Canelo's coming on. But I think Canelo's IQ is miles better than that. But before you know it, if that fight happens, we're into round 10 and Canelo's chasing the fight and Plant could be running and feel he's up in it. I do feel myself at some point, Canelo's got to land. It's how Caleb Plant reacts. It's all right talking the talk, but it's walking the walk once you're in there.
How much of a threat is Caleb Plant compared to the other guys Canelo's fought in the last couple of years?
How much is a threat? Listen, he's an undefeated kid. He's a world champion. He's had a tough story. If you look at him, he's mentally tough. He believes in himself, and he's gone into it. When you look at the press conference, not afraid to talk about Canelo's drug suspensions, which is a black mark on Canelo that riles him. He's got underneath Canelo's skin. He's got underneath Eddie Reynosa's skin. And the people say, is he got to come out and fight with his heart instead of his head? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Whatever it's done, it's made Canelo train that little bit harder, punch that little bit harder, and come in the fight determined. Canelo doesn't usually give predictions, but at the moment he's saying, I'm stopping in 9. I see today someone's said to him, oh, bet £1,000. He says, bet more, your money's safe. And that's the magnitude and the mindset of Canelo, that he's coming a bit like an old haggler, destruct and destroy mode mindset. And for Caleb Plant, he has this unbelievable belief. I didn't really think he'd beat Usagawa after Usagawa's performance when he fought Durrell, but he did. So you can never write off an undefeated world champion.
And the kind of fracas or the I can't call it a brawl because it didn't go that far, but the dispute they had at the press conference. What did you make of that? And did anyone come out of that with a mental victory?
No, I think what Caleb Plant saw there straight away, how fast Canelo can lay back and counter. And if they weren't working on that beforehand and didn't have an idea of Canelo's speed at doing it, well, he just had it firsthand there. And for someone that came with a wideish left hook for a slap, Canelo got out of the way of it and he ended up getting a countered left hook right hand, although it was open palm with a cut. And in the sense that Caleb Plant came to Canelo stood firm, laid back and countered. So yeah, listen, you can build all types of things. Caleb Plant would have felt Canelo's strength. Canelo most probably would have felt Caleb Plant's strength, and he's most probably getting his confidence from that.
How do you see the fight panning out? I know you've said what will give him the best possible chance, but you know, how do you think it will actually proceed?
I alluded to it earlier. I think, as the old saying goes, everyone has a plan till they get a smack in the mouth, and I think that's always the play. More appropriate for Saul Alvarez. Everyone has a plan till Canelo starts landing, and when he lands, the oohs, the ahs, the power, the feeling of it, the pressure, the walls start closing in. Is Caleb Plant that strong enough to do that? Does he have the mobility to keep out of that? You've seen Triple G when they've brought it to him. Liam Smith, when he brought it to him, made him uncomfortable. Will Caleb Plant bring him to him? He may do. He may not. There's times he's going to have to stand and trade, but it's just that coming in and coming out where he can get caught. You've seen at distance the shot that knocked Amir Khan out. And then when he on the ropes, he knocked out the
Kirkland.
middleweight. Pardon?
Kirkland,
yes. So he's a ferocious puncher. I do think Plant will cause problems. It's what happens when Canelo lands. If Caleb Plant can far feeling comfortable and take the sting out of his shot, build a bit of momentum up, then we have a bit of a fight. But it's when that Canelo push comes, and I think when that push comes, like all before, they'll end up buckling. And I think I expect Canelo Alvarez late stoppage or points. But at the same time, I won't be surprised on a dodgy decision points for thing if it goes a different distance.
And just to kind of round off, if you were creating kind of a boxer from scratch that would have the best chance of beating Canelo right now, what sort of attributes would they have?
I still to this day feel if I had the 10, 12 weeks with Callum Smith and the sparring partners, I think Callum Smith, I'll get slated for it. But if we would have had the proper training, the sparring partners, the timing and everything else, I still feel Callum Smith, and he feels most probably himself, that he'd want to give it another go and fight fire with fire. People say Artur Beterbiev. I think he's just getting a little bit older. I think Canelo would be able to ride the storm there. I think that's a very fascinating fight. Bivol could cause him problems, but you'd have to go back to the old fighters, like your Gerald McClellans, people like that, tall, upright, heavy-handed with a left hook and a right hand. That type of fighter would do good against the likes of Canelo Alvarez.
Great stuff. Joe, it's been a pleasure. Obviously, I want to wish you luck for the weekend because you've got your own fighters in action as well at super middleweight as well. So definitely a lot to think.
Fortune favours the brave, and like you say, it's a huge opportunity for Marcus Morrison. So let's go and do it.
Fingers crossed for you. Have a great day, great fight week, and we'll catch up again soon.
Cheers, no problem, Danny. Thank you.